Malaya, Associate Professor Dr. Chandran Somasundram, Executive Advisor of the Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking, Dr. Ron McCoy, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, allow me to officially welcome all of you to the book launch of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians, and Debate Showcase. My name is Izal Arif from the Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking, and I will be accompanying you for the night. Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians discusses Malaysia as a country rich of resources, cultures, and opportunities. It also discusses the obstacles faced by the country to reach a full potential in being a prosperous nation, and proposals that the reader may consider and ponder upon to remedy these issues. This book launch and debate showcase is brought to you by the author of the book, Dr. Anas Alam Faizi, and organized by the Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking and Gerak Budaya. And this event is also supported and hosted by Sunway University. Before we proceed with the event, I'd like to invite Ustaz Halim Hafiz to recite the prayers for the night.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening. Al-Fatiha. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, arrahmanir rahim, maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Innal hamdalillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma ighfir lana dhunubana wa liwalidina warhamhum kama rabbawna shighara wa li jami'il muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, ampunkanlah segala dosa-dosa kami, dosa yang besar maupun dosa yang kecil, dosa yang kami ketahui maupun dosa yang tidak kami ketahui, dosa yang kami sedari maupun tidak kami sedari, dosa yang kami sengajakan maupun dosa yang tidak disengajakan. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, ampunkanlah jua dosa mak ayah kami, kasihanilah mereka sebagaimana mereka menyayangi kami sejak kami kecil, ya Allah. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, ampunkanlah jua dosa pasangan-pasangan kami, anak cucu-cucu kami, atau nenek keturunan kami, adik-beradik dan saudara mara kami, kenalan-kenalan rakan taulan guru-guru kami, dan ibu bapa kepada guru-guru kami, pemimpin-pemimpin kami, seterusnya kepada seluruh muslimin muslimat, mukminin dan juga mukminat, dan seluruh rakyat Malaysia sama ada yang telah mati ataupun masih hidup lagi. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, bersempena dengan majlis pelajaran buku Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians ini, kami memohon agar kau berkatilah usaha penulis buku ini, iaitu Dr. Anas Alam Faizi, dan seluruh insan-insan yang membantu untuk menjayakan karya ilmiah ini, sama ada secara langsung ataupun tidak. Luaskan impak penulisan ini agar motif dan tujuannya tercapai. Berikan kefahaman kepada seluruh pembaca-pembacanya agar dapat dimanfaatkan dalam kehidupan seharian mereka. Curahkan impak positif yang seluas-luasnya agar negara kami bakal menjadi lebih baik, aman dan makmur. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, kau mantapkanlah buku ini, lariskan jualannya, dan yang paling utama, jadikanlah buku ini sebagai pemangkin ke arah kesejahteraan negara. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, berikanlah keamanan dan kekayaan buat negara ini dan rakyatnya. Tingkatkan kesejahteraan di bumi bertuah ini dan juga untuk rakyatnya. Turunkanlah rahmat dan hidayahmu untuk seluruh rakyat dan penghuni tanpa mengira kaum, bangsa dan agama, agar mereka hidup aman dan harmoni, diberikan kesihatan jiwa dan rohani, dimakbulkan segala impian yang dihajati. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana jam'an marhuma wa tafarraqna min tafarruqan ma'suma wa la taj'al fina syaqiyyan wa la matruda. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, jadikanlah perhimpunan ini, perkumpulan ini sebagai perhimpunan dan perkumpulan yang dirahmati, dan perpisahan selepas ini perpisahan yang diberkati. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Taqabbalallahu minkum.
Thank you very much, Ustaz. Now to continue, we would like to show everyone a video containing a message by the author behind Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians, which grew out of the themes of the book.
I have to record the video.
Malaysia bagaikan sebuah pembangkai yang unik dan tersendiri, melting pot, semuanya ada. Satu-satunya negara yang punya tanah di benua Asia dan juga di pusat Pulau lain. Hanya di negara ini terdapat ramai penduduk yang mempunyai akar lebih daripada 2 tahun tertua dunia, yaitu India dan China. Bangsa Melayu pula mempunyai budaya yang sama dengan budaya Nusantara ini. Agama Islam membuka ruang dan pintu kepada dunia Islam, manakala legasi British membuka pintu kepada dunia Barat. Indonesia boleh kemana-mana di dunia ini. Malaysia juga sebuah negara kepelbagaian, berbagai kaum, berbagai bahasa, berbagai agama, berbagai budaya, berbagai dewan, perniagaan, berbagai parti, berbagai juara, semua kerajaan, berbagai kerajaan, 1 kerajaan persekutuan, 13 kerajaan negeri, dan juga berbagai raja, terdapat 9 daripada 35 bahagi yang ada di Malaysia. Malaysia juga mempunyai lawan terbesar di dunia, 30 kilo kerajaan, bukan state. Jadi, keunikan Malaysia ini bukan sahaja truly Asia, tetapi truly world. Korupsi membara sedalamnya, terperangkatnya ekonomi lompong, kebergantungan kepada pekerja asing yang melampau, pendapatan rendah, tertekan dengan kos sara hidup yang tinggi, dan majoriti rakyat Malaysia hanya boleh survive tidak lebih sebulan di kehilangan kerja. Yang paling menyedihkan, di setiap sudut jalan, di dinding-dinding terdapat iklan nombor alok dan nombor medicine. But how we doing to fail? Sekiranya sejarah mengajar sesuatu tiada yang mustahil. Orang Mongol yang berturut menakluk 2/3 dunia. Orang Jepun yang pemalas menjadi raja selepas revolusi Meiji. Orang Arab, orang Vietnam pula mahal Perancis dan yang lain kedai-kedai mereka. Tiada yang mustahil. Jadi bagaimana? Atas tujuan murni ini, senarai hasrat saya untuk Malaysia yang lebih baik ialah membuat majelis konsultasi negara 2, konsultasi masuk yang lebih baik, hentikan pentinikahan proyek kerajaan persekutuan kerajaan negeri, pembentukan asas ekonomi tukar daripada rented kapitalisme kepada industrial techno-kapitalism, dan saya mengutamakan rakyat dengan mengagungkan prinsip keadilan sosial, usahawan dengan ada value demokrasi kapitalisme, melakukan perang terhadap jumlah kekayaan dan pendapatan, sekolah rendah asrama penuh, perumahan mampu milik, jadikan sektor tenaga, pembinaan, pengangkutan air dan pembuangan sisa lebih green dan efisien, diperbaikkan seimbang gaji yang cukup, bukan 2 gaji. Meningkatkan seimbang pemekasan wanita, pendidikan yang inklusif, penilaian semula falsafah pendidikan negara digantikan dengan love pedagogi, penjagaan kesihatan yang mampu milik, lebih hospital dan hospital latihan serta klinik yang sebelengkap, dikalahkan kesudaraan NGO yang ketiga bagi memperkasa demokrasi. Tapi urus yang baik serta integriti dengan kebebasan maklumat, media yang perkasa dan whistleblower yang berani, demokrasi aktif dan inklusif bukan hanya bawa di 5 tahun sekali. Paling penting hentikan politik perkawanan dan kebencian. Jadi sekarang pilihan kita, mau jadikan keberbagaian kita satu kelemahan atau satu kekuatan. Within Malaysia, where do we go from here? It's your choice. Pilihan di tangan anda. Satu suara mungkin dari besar, 10 suara mungkin akan getaran sekecil, tapi kalau 1000 suara akan membawa halilintar yang boleh membelah bumi. Tidak pun Putrajaya.
That video was thought-provoking and most certainly gives us a lot to think about. Now, it brings me great pleasure to invite the author of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians, Dr. Anas Alam Faizli, to come up on stage to deliver his speech.
Yang diraikan ibu bapa saya, yang dihormati Tan Sri Aisyah Ayub, Tan Sri Anwar Ali, Tan Sri Fuzi, Tan Sri Gaw Jasmon, YB Sari Sungib, YB Daroya, Dr. Nungsari, Yang Arif Azizul, Prof. Chandran, Dr. McCoy, Dr. Rusli, Prof. Tajudin, Prof. Zahrihab, Datuk Lim, Mat Faris. Esteemed dignitaries, members of Blind Spot, debaters, writers, readers, members of the media, distinguished guests, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to all of you. Thank you Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, as it is through His grace and mercy that we are present here today. Before I begin, I would like to recite a poem based on my observation of our socio-economic setup and the state of our beloved nation. This will be my first poem recited in public or private. Malaysia kaya, rakyat miskin. Kita berhak yang lebih baik. Kemewahan mahsul bukan akademik. Perlu agihan secara pragmatik. Hentikan alasan penuh munafik. Rentier kapitalis, ekonomi lompong, ejen neoliberal, jangan membohong. Cukai, tol jalan dan terowong, untung tak pernah dibawa kosong. Betulkan ekonomi, jangka panjang, agihan adil yang penuh peluang. Jangan suka asyik menjulang, negeri tergadai, lintanglah hukam. Mitos rakyat malas bekerja, pekerja asing pengganti bicara. Keuntungan syarikat terus berleluasa, menghimpit peluang rakyat biasa. Pendidikan, kesihatan, haknya warga. Tugasnya kerajaan itu nyata. Menyediakan ia buat semua, tingkatkan kualiti hidup bersama. Pendidikan itu perlukan cinta, belajar, mengajar, mendidik warga. Cinta menentang nyah insani manusia. Empati, peduli kepada bangsa. Alam sekitar berjerebu menjerit. Teknologi hijau perlu diapit. Kecekapan tenaga wajib diterbit. Ekonomi mapan berdaya sengit. Jurang gaji wanita di tempat kerja. Cabul dan diskriminasi berleluasa. Bangun, pertahankan wanita negara. Wanita berdaya, perkasakan semua. Kekayaan negara hilang ke mana? Urus tadbir tanpa neraca. Merdekakan media sebagai pengacara. Pemberi maklumat perlukan kuasa. Kerajaan pertama, swasta kedua. Ejen demokrasi, suara semua. Diangkat, dibela demi negara. Jeritan merdeka 60 tahun lalu, masanya menongkar Malaysia baru. Hidup berkualiti dan bersatu, ilmu dibangun, teknologi maju. Kejujuran perlu penentu rencana, membuat dasar polisi perdana. Kepentingan bersama, kompas utama, janganlah beradil di mulut sahaja. Kepelbagaian Malaysia, satu punca kekuatan, satu keunikan, bukan kelemahan. Peduli negara, satu keperluan, kayakan rakyat, jadikan kegairahan. Malaysia kaya, rakyat kaya. Rakyat kaya, Malaysia kaya. Thank you. I'm not sure how that went, but I would like to continue with my speech. Since the first edition of this book was published, many have asked what I do for a living. To clarify, well, writing is not my profession. I'm also not a politician, because if I were one, I would not be wasting my time writing and saying extensively what ought and must be done but instead I would execute it. I'm a professional working in the oil and gas industry and have recently added civil construction as my new forte. I'm just another concerned citizen, like all of you here, evident by your attendance tonight. Thank you very much. For poor Malaysians. These are the 4 words that sum up our current socio-economic structure. State of depression. People are relatively in more hardship than before. Suppressed salary, higher unemployment, rising living costs, inadequate savings, tension, and also troubling state, the mental health of Malaysians. Depressing. Unfortunately, the political scene isn't as favorable as one might have hoped. Politics of race and hate and the heightening polarization is breaking up this country. And this must stop. How did this happen is no longer a relevant question. Instead, my question, or what we should be asking tonight is, what do we do now? And where do we go from here? Is a more important question. And I can tell you tonight that there is a way out. There is a way out. 60 years have passed since our independence. We have all the empirical data, both quantitative and qualitative. And all these data are in the hands of institutions and corporations, powerful institutions and corporations, which should be readily available for us. And what we need to do, my focus here is honesty and transparency. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop being ignorant about this and start being curious citizens, because we can be powerful and make changes to the current standing of this nation. And it doesn't stop there. The young should be encouraged to be just as curious, since they are our future. Stop lying and claiming that we have the best education in the world, the best healthcare, and other litany of lies, except we might have the world's best debaters. The entire structure of the economy and ideology has to change, like what I mentioned in my poem just now. It will not be a simple tweak of specific policy or intervention, but a full relook of the entire way of how we do things, and we must do it now. Ladies and gentlemen, the first edition of this book was published 3 years ago. Today, as I stand here in front of you, I can tell you that unfortunately there was no significant event that has changed the essential message of this book. The message that we are facing unnecessary catastrophe if the remaining fundamental and structural problems remain unfixed is now more relevant than ever. In this book, I've shared my findings on some important statistical data that I believe needs to be highlighted and work on for the betterment of this delicate nation full of potential. On women empowerment, we need to bring back the 2 to 4 million women that is missing in action to the workforce to enable them, which will elevate Malaysia as a high-income nation status overnight. I have also shared on environment, how we can actually preserve our environment and generate economic benefit from it. And in the long run, Malaysia can take the opportunity to become a technology leader in environment, in green technology. There's also a piece on love pedagogy, pendidikan cinta, how we must humanize human again and take a take on our state of economy, which I call it the hollow economy. For the year 2015 alone, a total of 35 billion ringgit was repatriated by the foreign workers. Total salaries paid would be close to 70 billion just for 1 year. So these are issues in the book. It is irresponsible to allow and let 8.4 million most vulnerable Malaysians to compete directly with 6.7 million more desperate foreign workers from poorer countries. Well, there's a lot more in the book, but I will let you discover it yourself. Each chapter in this book can be further elaborated debated and discussed, and actually some chapters can be expanded into another book. I hope it is an easy read. Ladies and gentlemen, with all humility, I sincerely hope that this new edition will give a more holistic coverage on fundamental issues that are currently plaguing our beloved nation. My mission here is to bring pressure by means of creating public awareness for a renavigation to the right path. Finally, I would like to thank and take this opportunity to thank everybody who is here from the deepest bottom of my heart for attending, and a special thanks to Tan Sri Arsha Ayub and our celebrated young debaters. This book is dedicated to all Malaysians facing escalating hardship in living conditions. You deserve better. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your remarks. We will keep them in mind as we read Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians. Before we continue, I also would like to invite everyone here to share the time that you spend tonight on your Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with the hashtag RMPM, hashtag Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians. Do let everyone know the significance of the matters that is being discussed on your night. Now, without any further ado, it is now time for the launching of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians. And with that being said, I would like to invite our guest of honor, Tan Sri Haji Arshad Ayub, Father of University Technology Mara, to deliver his officiation speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Congratulations to the young author who is working but also has time to write and is concerned about the citizens, is concerned about the environment, is concerned about the education, and is concerned about a lot of things, especially socio-economic development. I'm not going to describe the person, but I must ask you, I was wondering why he invited me to launch this book. But I do not know him that well. I suppose he knows me better than I know him. But one thing, what attracts me most is his title. That's the one I think I accepted. And that is Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysia. But I think what we have been trying to do since we became independent since 1957, over the 60 years, and this is the time when Malaysia's 60 years of independence is the precise moment that we are to return to the drawing board. This is the best time for us to review what we have achieved, what we haven't achieved, where we succeeded very well, where we didn't succeed, and where, if you like, some of the policies failed. As a public servant for years, I think the policies, taking into account what has been described by Anas, the multiracial society, multi-states, all multi, and all the number of foreigners that we have in this country, I think I must say, I myself personally feel, we are definitely richer than we were before independence. Of course, some people will not accept it, but I think as a whole, those days, there were only 6 or 7 million Malaysian, but today we have almost 32 million. So that's a very big population. So you cannot say, the most important thing when we look at it is, my own concern is this. The social and economic re-engineering utilizing our best mind to charter our national recalibration for a way forward, built upon empirical evidence and assessment of both our successful and failed policies needed. I mean, when we look back at ourselves, first I look at myself. What I was 70 or almost 80 years ago. 80 years ago, I just joined government English preparatory school from the 3-year school in Malaysia, in Muar. But today, not only we have a government prep school, no university, but today we have government alone has 20 universities, and not to speak of private universities. So in spite of all, whatever, if you like to call it our failures, some like to call it scandals, and so many things, sometimes they speak about bank BMF, sometimes they talk about the tin, and then recently they talk about the foreign exchange, and even the issues of what MIDP still linger in some people's mind. But in spite of all this, we must take off our head to whom we must credit the runway. Those who ran the country over the years, I think we must happy, we must be grateful to them. They have done it well, whether it's internal security, whether today we have 5 million foreign workers, which has always been my worrying part all in my life. How to get rid of the 5 million foreign workers in the country. These are issues which are not very easy to solve. But we were surprised when we had national service, when people teach national service, even supposed to be 6 months. 6 months. And that is, you learn more about military, about discipline. But I would have thought if I have to take a new system, why not we have agriculture national service? In other words, our young chap who was supposed to do national service, they learn to tap rubber, they learn to work in the oil palm industry, they learn how to grow rice, and other things, or to work into the forestry, and above all, to help the country to go green. Whatever we have. Now this is, I like the title because I want to make sure in the next 30 years, we have a certain policy and guidance which reach and that means we might go for the high income, higher productivity, and so on. And I myself, an experience working in the palm oil, the issue is this. When we talk about the profit in the palm oil industry, I informed the staff, the workers, actually the profit is quite a lot. And there is the question of, but where do you get the profit? But we give the target to the workers, to the staff, to the estate. You produce so many tons per acre. Now what happened, for no reason, you don't reach that standard, and they still claim they want bonus because of the price, but the price is not given by them. But to me, the most important thing we look at it is productivity. Now, when we look at some of our policies didn't work well, I don't blame very much of them. We always fail in the implementation of our policy. I mean, we tried with the new economic policy, why did we fail? And we should ask ourselves, and today if you talk about this, quite a lot of news about corruption and so on and so forth. And this is the one that I think that it should be first priority for us, maybe for a more productive and for a more social advance in the country. Kadang-kadang kita banyak takut juga. Even orang mengelolakan agama pun juga tercebur dalam perkara ini. And this is very painful. Now, I think when you have a chance to read Anna's book, I think politicians policymakers, civil servants, and the government who are in powers must read the book so that they can understand better how we're going to improve the situation. And there is also another policy, I think, it's the question of income distribution. I think one of the things you have to emphasize in your book about income distribution, disparity in income. Now this probably, don't worry about the businessman. The businessman, as long as he can make a profit, return on their investment, you don't expect them not to invest. If today you have your money, what would you do? 100 million. You can sit comfortably, put it in the bank, whether Islamic bank or non-Islamic banking, you get about 4% of return, not rate of interest. Rate of interest is haram, but some people say the higher if the interest is very high, and that's no good anyway. So Malaysia is a success story 60 years after independence. We have produced many professional, and back in 70s, we are only paddy farmers, we are rubber tappers, and clerks, all the lower group. But now, we have engineers. I think we just talked with one of the former VC, they're writing a book of the successful engineers. And what we need more would be entrepreneurs. And we need them to push the country forward. In the race to wealth and prosperity, we have to acknowledge pertinent problem on widening income inequality and disparity. And we must work together to ensure that the wealth is distributed fairly and a Malaysian citizen can taste the fruit of our country's success. So when a company makes a profit, we have to consider how you divide, whether it is the shareholders who take the risk, or the staff, or the government. The government will take today 26 or 27% of the income. The recommendation in his book certainly deserve the full attention of decision makers. The real challenge ultimately is to ensure their broad acceptance and judicious transformation into national policies that will positively contribute to creating a better Malaysia. Rich Malaysia, poor Malaysians is a critical insight of Malaysia's state of affairs while recognizing the richness of the natural resources and the unique multi-diversity of the nation. Very interesting with deep insight. They always say, take advantage of our multiracials. But we have problems, we have issues among races, but still we still prosper. I do not know what happened if there is no problem in the country. I'm not sure of our prosperity. Maybe we do. Can we dream of a strong local workforce where both our skilled and professional workers are locals who earn high wages that are sufficient for them to live comfortably? And I think as far as the government today, when they talk about no more poverty line, they talk about more like satisfaction. You get a reasonable house, reasonable accommodation, and it's reasonable service like the hospitals, medical and health services, and good education. And today, of course, coming to education, I know a little bit more, is that we have 21 universities, and I think about 45 or 50 private universities as well. We have all sorts of schools in this country, even at kindergarten, yang ada sekolah Arab, kindergarten, sekolah China, sekolah India, Taska, all sorts of things. And if you talk about national unity of the future, I don't know whether that will come true or not. Because I think when you're very young, you are really have the opportunity to mix with other people. As you grow older, you develop certain bad habits, like me and many others. Or see a worsening of the current situation with many locals unable to find jobs and the majority of them earning low income. And that's what I said. How can we mechanize the estate? But if 6 million foreign workers leave Malaysia, what kind of state we will be in terms of economics? Maybe the rubber tree is not tapped, the palm fruits will not be harvested, and tall buildings may not be built. I think we are happier that way. There are too many tall buildings. Now, these are the issues that face the government, I think. Much as we would like to see the foreign workers to go, there is the balance of it. So, unless, of course, our chap is prepared to work in the rubber estate, to work in the palm oil, to work in the construction industry, get rid of all those foreign workers, which we think is a problem, and maybe raise the higher pay. If they can, that could be done. But this is maybe to us is theoretical. It's not easy to do that. I was talking to a good friend of mine. I said, what happens if we stop foreign workers to work in the plantation industry? Oh, he said, you do that, there not a single fruit bunch will be harvested. That's why I thought, as part of the problem, not necessarily solving it, why not our national service, about 6 months to 3 months, where our national service girls and boys will learn to work in the estate, or even if necessary, in the construction industry. We are also in dire need for more trained professionals and innovators. And we could have harvested them from talents that did not pursue tertiary education due to the lack of opportunities. As a developing nation, Malaysia is approaching the last but toughest hurdle in achieving wealth and prosperity. That is a knowledge-based society driven by intellectual and thinkers who are present today. Trickle-down economy and an export-led based growth or development have been proven not to work. We need the right economic policy and approach to solve fundamental economic problems and issues. We also need to strictly reduce the number of foreign workers through industry limits and quota. We need to start now. I myself work in one of the listed companies. You won't believe it, we have 7,000 foreign workers in the company. And it is one of the biggest manufacturer in Malaysia, as far as the club is concerned. But in some other companies, the little one, maybe the local people will work. So this is the whole attitude we have to think about. And also don't forget the number of people who are in the Pusat Serenti. These issues are really very, I call it, very gigantic and a bit difficult to solve. We would have a very, very strict rule. Those who are found with drug by a certain number of weight, then you go hanging. But still people are repeating. There's a suggestion, maybe we shouldn't hang people who are supposed to be sentenced to death, you know. Just keep them for 30 years in the jail. Then you, the social aspect of it, we have to pay for it to keep this 30, to keep this one people 30 years in jail. So these are the issues I think that not only our country, all other countries are facing. By the year 2030, Malaysia's population will be as old as aging Japan. Asia and Malaysia specifically have one of the fastest aging population in the world. And I'm going to be 89 on the 15th of November. But thank God, rezeki saya ada. I don't have to depend on my children. No, I have to depend on the state, that's all. But maybe one of the many, I don't know, or one of the few. I see my friend around there. I think most of us who are here do not depend on the state, I hope, when we grow old. And according to the Singapore-based Asia Pacific Risk Center, APRC, the swelling ranks of the elderly will cost the region 20 trillion in healthcare by 2030. So good opportunities for the doctors who are in the faculty of medicine or nurses to look after them, whether it's by the government or by the insurance company or by their children. So Malaysia will take only 23 years to double from 7% in 2020 to 14% in 2043. This aging process took Europe 100 years. I think we're going to take only 23 years. So these are the issues we have to look at it. Malaysia is fast becoming an aging society. We need to also ensure our healthcare is top-notch. Good doctors, making it affordable to the masses. Just now, Anas has painted not a very good picture of what's happening. But I think in spite of all this, in spite of the problem, issues, whatever you say of the government, of the people, hitting each other and so on, swearing each other, but I think overall, Malaysia is still cannot be regarded as very much a poor nation. But this thing bothers me is this. The income tax that we only have to, this one, I think the private sector will get annoyed with me. I think 29% income tax is 27, 26 or 29, is it? Individual. Any idea? I think 27 is, I know company tax 27, but I think maybe we can afford again to have a higher taxation, maybe, taxation rate, but everybody will be very annoyed. There are two, company tax and individual taxes can be separated, that's the way. Maybe less for individual tax, but higher company taxation. So these probably are some issues that you and I have got to consider, and I'm looking at the back, the younger generation. You have to live with it, and but whatever you benefit today, you'll have to give it tomorrow when you go. Jadi inilah kalau saya kata pisang mas bawa belayar, masak sebiji di atas peti, hutang mas boleh dibayar, you berhutang budi itu tak tahulah. Sama ada nak balas, bawa mati. But I think this is what is happening today. You will inherit from us, both the good and the bad. The rich and the poor, you will inherit. So with this, I have the pleasure of launching the book called Rich Malaysia and Poor Malaysians. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. And I would like to invite Tan Sri to stay up on stage for the launching of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians, where he will place a signature on the cover of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians, and thus officiating the book launch. Thank you very much, Tan Sri Haji Ashar Ayub, for officiating the book launch. Now I would like to invite Tan Sri Anwar Ali, Tan Sri Gaut Jasmon, Dr. Nung Sari, Tan Sri Ahmad Fuzi, and Dr. Anas Alam Faizi to join Tan Sri Haji Ashar Ayub to have their pictures taken on stage with copies of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians. Thank you very much to our honorable guests. And that concludes the first portion of the night, the book launch of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians. We will now move on to the second portion of the night, the debate showcase. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you will witness a debate showcased by 6 of many Malaysia's most talented debaters. Malaysia has a thriving debating culture, with many of the debaters achieving titles and recognitions while holding up the banner written Malaysia. The Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking, or MIDP, one of the co-organizers of tonight's event, strives to encourage Malaysia to excel in debating and public speaking, like the 6 that you will witness later. MIDP, led by the CEO, Mr. Ahmed Faris, is an organization that caters to the needs of Malaysia in terms of the development in debating, public speaking, and critical thinking. With our motto, motivated by passion, our goal is to develop a future that envisions a critical-minded society. For tonight's debate, the debaters will be debating in the Asian parliamentary format. In this format, there will be 2 teams of 3 speakers, a government team who proposes the motion before the House, and an opposition team who opposes the motion. Speeches will be 7 minutes, and points of information may be asked in the middle of a speech by members of the opposing team between the 1st and the 6th minute. Allow me to firstly introduce the speakers who will be debating tonight. The 6 people who will be debating are on my right down here. I will first introduce everyone to members of the government bench. First, we have the Prime Minister or First Speaker of the Government, Jason Lee of SMK Aloaka Kuantan. Jason is a current member of the Malaysian National Schools team for the World Schools Debating Championship. He is a semi-finalist of the Brickfields Asia College Debate Open 2017, a semi-finalist of the Taylor's Debate Open 2016, and a grand finalist of the Malaysian Debaters High School Open 2016. He was also one of the top 10 best speakers of the UKM Debate Open 2017, as well as the Taylor's Debate Open 2016. Next, we have the Deputy Prime Minister, or Second Speaker of the Government, Amira Natasha Moore of the International Islamic University Malaysia, Gombak. Amira is a 3-times champion of the Australasian Debating Championship, twice champion for the English as a second language category, and recently the champion of the Open category. She has also won 3 Asian championships and the Cambridge InterVarsities in 2016. And she is also currently the world's overall best English as a second language speaker. Then we have the Government Whip, or the Third Speaker of the Government, Don Siron Pereira, formerly of Oxford Brookes University. Siron is the current head coach of the Malaysian National Schools team for the World Schools Debating Championship. And rest assured, our nationals team are in safe hands, as he has also coached 4 Asian School Champions team. Now we meet members of the opposition bench, starting with the Leader of Opposition, or First Speaker of the Opposition, Har Navinjit Singh. of SMK Damansara Utama. Naveed is also a current member of the Malaysian national schools team for the World Schools Debating Championship, and he is a semi-finalist of the Malaysia Debate Open 2017, as well as the Taiwan Debate Open 2016. We also have the Deputy Leader of Opposition, or the second Speaker of the Opposition, Felice Wong of Taylor's University. Felice is a grand finalist of the Malaysian Nationals Inter-Varsity Debating Championship 2016, and she was also part of the Best New Performing Team in the World Championships 2017. Finally, we have the Opposition Whip, or the third Speaker of the Opposition, Mirzal Mohammed of University Technology Mara. Mirzal is the champion and overall best speaker of the Asian Championships in 2014. He is also a 3-time Asian Grand Finalist, as well as part of the first Asian team to win the Cambridge Intervarsities in 2015. He is also part of the second overall ranked team in the World Championships twice, in 2016 and 2017. And he is also the 4th overall best speaker of the World Championships 2017, making him the highest ranked speaker from Malaysia in history and the highest ranked from Asia in 2 decades. Now that everyone has gotten to know the speakers of the debate showcase, we can begin the debate. I will be acting as chairperson of the debate, and I now call this house to order. I'd like to invite all 6 speakers to take their places on stage for the debate start. Ladies and gentlemen, the motion before the House is that this House believes that Malaysia should prioritize policies that reduce inequality over economic growth. And without any further ado, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister Jason Lee to open the debate. Testing. Can everyone hear me? It doesn't matter how many residents of Mount Kiara can afford supercars. For as long as there's one resident in Jinjang Selatan that has no access to clean water, proper healthcare, and proper shelter, we as a nation has failed. Although the government has brought down Malaysia's Gini coefficient, which is a measure of inequality, from 0.531 to 0.401, which is good, there is still a series of problems in Malaysia. For example, the median household income for Kuala Lumpur is 7,620 ringgit, whereas the median household income in Kelantan is a mere 2,716 ringgit. That gap requires this debate. This debate is a discussion about which Malaysia is preferable. On the side of government, we want a Malaysia that, as far as possible, guarantees equal access to the opportunities and resources that this country has to offer to the maximum amount of people. On their side, they have to defend a system that favors the top, that sacrifices the lowest common denominator in the name of progress. How then do we decide this debate? We think that this debate requires 2 standards. Firstly, which side can guarantee better access to the resources and opportunities that I mentioned, and secondly, which side can provide better success that we can achieve. But before that, let me just clarify, what does policies that reduce inequality mean? We believe that these policies can take various forms. In Malaysia, we have seen the new economic policy, we have seen programs like MARA, FELDA, public education, healthcare, progressive taxation. But in general, these policies share the theme of reducing the barrier of entry for these various sectors. On the other hand, policies that prioritize economic growth, have seen, mainly focuses on maximizing output. What does output mean? This means policies like proposing free trade, minimal government intervention in the market, and things like that. Moving on to my arguments. Firstly, on how do we provide quality access to the opportunities and resources to all layers of society. First level, on how do we provide more quality access to the rich? Because in a world where output is a priority and competition is the norm, there will be limited places for education and in the workplace alike. Have a seat. This competition means that more often than not, the rich, who are the people who are most able to gain these positions, will compete against each other. In a more benevolent, it can look like talent or crowding out the competition by lowering prices, but in more malicious forms. This means things like corporate espionage or patent monopolization, things that don't give small and medium enterprises a chance to survive. So why is this harmful? Have a seat. This is harmful as valuable resources by these companies are spent bolstering their legal squadrons in order to sue their opponents out of existence, instead of devoting them to community projects, devoting them to research and development, devoting them to making better products. So what's the difference in our world? In our world, we give these companies less of an incentive to fight, because our policies will mainly be guided towards reducing inequality instead of maximizing economic output. So in a world where competition is viewed in a less valuable manner, more money will go to the communal projects, more money will go to collaborations between companies, because it is in their common interest to produce goods instead of competing against each other. Before I move on to the second level, yes. The second level, and how is this policy the only pathway for economically disenfranchised minorities? The world of opposition is a world where it's merit-centered. Have a seat. It is a race to the top. And in this race, the odds are stacked heavily against the poor. Not only through direct means like paying tuition fees or being able to afford private tuition, it also means due to the huge inequalities in which various studies, have a seat, have shown direct correlation between social problems and income inequality like alcohol abuse, high divorce rates, higher infant mortality, and mental health. The poor will have to contend with all of these factors without the advantage of being able to access quality healthcare, quality mental health institutions, the help that they need to get out of their predicament. So what does this mean? Have a seat. This means that the mere fact that some of us are shackled with a disproportionate burden compared to other people by virtue of the birth lottery is inherently unfair. Before that, yes.
So as an investor, why am I likely to invest in open factories in Malaysia when I can do it for significantly cheaper in Vietnam?
We think that when your investment comes at the cost of the blood and sweat and tears of our poorest people, our most vulnerable people, we rather you not have that investment. Lastly, why trickle-down economics is a lie. We believe that opposition has to defend trickle-down economics, a system that relies on the fact that the wealth by the privileged will somehow reach the poor. It doesn't work. Because when you put the power of wealth distribution in the hands of the privileged, it is more likely that they'll keep the wealth to themselves. This is why rich corporations lobby for a lower minimum wage. This is why rich corporations try to circumvent around labor regulations. This is why rich corporations scare their employees out of labor unions, because they want the maximum profit for them. Before the Industrial Revolution, which heralded the age of colonialism and capitalism, in the world's 10 richest countries was only 6 times higher than those in the 10 poorest. That number today is 100. So on the last argument, on how do we create better access? We consider the fact that in the world of opposition, it is more likely they're going to have quicker progress. They're going to have more progress. But what does that progress look like? That success, that progress comes at the cost of putting people into boxes. As when people succeed, it's of a certain group of people. It won't be a Malaysian success. It will be a rich person's success. It will be a Malay success. It won't be to relate to those successes. So what does our successes look like? Our successes may be slower, but it's more relatable. It is more communal. I can sit in a TV in my house and look at a TV and feel that the successes that I see is a Malaysian success instead of something that I cannot relate to. As cliche as it sounds, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Resolve our sisters, and we can only call ourselves a successful nation. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Prime Minister Jason Lee for his speech. Now, I would like to invite the Leader of Opposition, Harnavijit Singh, for the case of the opposition bench.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear?
I know I may have stumbled a little bit earlier by forgetting my question, but I think that is incomparable to assuming companies that are developed for the sole purpose of attaining profits are somehow going to change their incentives, somehow going to change their aims, because the Malaysian government told them that. You know what happened the last time we tried to tell a company named Intel to adapt towards Malaysian policies? They left us for Vietnam. In the world of government, they have to defend the world of protectionism. They have to defend the world of high taxation. They have to defend the world with the lack of opportunities for the young Malaysians Jason claims to defend, but only does so with rhetoric and emotion. The first thing I will tell you, companies aren't going to change. Companies will always want profit. So the question then becomes, where do they go? If in the case of Malaysia implementing minimum wage, implement a $15 hike, they'll just leave you. The second thing then, even if they don't leave, the second best alternative then is to automate. So all of the jobs that you claim will simply be lost. The second thing I want to talk about is this thing of opposition being the evil capitalists. Notice, what does the rich man in Mount Kiara have to do with economic development in Malaysia? I'm not exactly sure. I'm pretty sure you guys went either. The second thing Jason tried to tell you is that Malaysia is fine without private investment. We'll do perfectly fine. I didn't know the incarnation of Fidel Castro was going to be among us today, right? You want to know what a world of private investment without private investment looks like? It's a world where all the private universities our esteemed guests were telling you about wouldn't exist. It's a world where all of the education and all the technological sectors that have been developed in Malaysia would also not exist. It's a world where all of the firms that are accounting for almost 40% of the jobs in the Malaysian economy would not exist. So you cannot trade off the private companies and private investment without telling us what the benefit to that trade-off is. The second thing I talk about, and I'm really going to have fun with this, the success stories we have in government are communal successes. What does that even mean? There are a lot of things that I can deem successful to me. But if I'm living in Cuba, perpetually stuck in the 1970s, I can be happy, but that's not very great for my country. I would not have the same kind of money that you would have. The world of government is a world where the individuals they claim to defend have less of an income, have less money, and they're perpetually stuck in a cycle of poverty. But as long as they're happy, what's the problem, right? So before I move into my argument, I would love to answer.
So the comparison on your side, you say, is that far more people will be enriched with companies that are willing to invest. The assumption here is that companies work in the best interest of society, but having said already that they're all self-interested and profit-motivated, how do you make that happen?
Sure.
So while they may be self-interested, the way that they're self-interested is often beneficial to the people on the ground. So what does it mean? When a company opens a headquarters in Malaysia, it hires Malaysians, it hires engineers, it hires people that graduate from local industry. This should be pretty common. But firstly, I'm going to tell you what the stance for opposition is. We would prioritize economic development. We're going to prioritize economic opportunity. What does this translate to? We are all for lowering taxes for businesses. We're all for securing foreign direct investments. We're all for opening factories or company headquarters here in Malaysia. We are all for increasing the jobs. Anything that does not look like this is not in the best interest of Malaysia. We are against protectionism and we are against higher taxation in the name of pursuing welfare. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that I would love for Malaysia to be the bastion of social justice in Southeast Asia. However, I do not think that we're in a position capable of it. The first reason is that I think Malaysia's economy is heavily export-based, right? We trade 175 billion in terms of exports. The second thing, we trade electronics, we trade rubber, we trade pharmaceuticals. The second thing is that Malaysia is in a pretty tight situation currently. Not only are we recovering from the scandals mentioned earlier, but also the oil crash earlier, right? The second problem is that we're also trying to compete regionally. While we are the biggest exporter at the moment, Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand are quickly approaching us and quickly challenging our stance there. So what does it mean at the point at which we pursue economic empowerment, right? It would mean abandoning standards or lessening your free trade. The companies that enter your country. The problem with this is, with as reliant as we are on these exports, the moment that you disincentivize people from going there, the problem is that the entire economy that relies on this one thing starts to flounder. So what does it translate to? Less of the GDP, less money for the government to operate with, less stuff like that. Secondly, in the world where we implement the policies of government, what happens? First, sit down. Firstly, right, the cost of running businesses becomes significantly more expensive for most companies within Malaysia, right? So I think that the things we can expect to happen come in 3 stages. The first would, of course, be the layoffs that Microsoft did in Malaysia recently, right? Firing their staff because it's too expensive to keep them. The second thing, even in the context of a poorer person, it would mean your jobs being optimized. If it is more expensive to have humans working in your factory, the next best alternative are the robots, which are pretty great. So the second thing then, at that point, more people leave that economy. The third problem then is companies pulling out of your country because it becomes too expensive to be within there. So for example, not only Intel leaving, but also Samsung closing down their factories to leave us for Vietnam. In conclusion, this side is a side that has to deal with it, and they have to defend a world where we have significantly less jobs.
If it is true that your multinational corporations are almighty gods that we need to pander to, would you abolish minimum wage in Malaysia to attract more companies?
If abolishing minimum wage would mean Malaysia having more economic opportunities, then sure. The second thing then I'll tell you, how does this hurt the poor? We think that not only does it hurt the poor in the sense where they no longer have a job, no longer have jobs to support them, but you also perpetually trap them in the welfare trap. So in absence of actual working opportunities, the next best alternative for the poor would be welfare. So what would this mean? It would mean they would perpetually have to rely on handouts, perpetually rely on government stakeouts. So the problem then is that these individuals lose their agency to control the decisions they make. Little 1,000 ringgit you could have made with a job, not only do you have to rely on the government for it, but you also have to wait for it. It's also heavily dependent on the economic situation. All it's going to take is someone like Donald Trump to come around and remove your healthcare, and that's it, you're gone. So in conclusion, the last thing I will say then is that the economy today is not going to be the same as the economy tomorrow. So what does this mean? The economy isn't going to slow down for Malaysia. Just because we say we're going to take things easy, that doesn't mean the economy will. If Malaysia stops prioritizing economic growth, we will be left behind. We will be taken over by countries like Thailand and the Philippines. Audience, do not be confused. The side of government would like you to believe that they want a richer Malaysia with rich Malaysians, but the outcomes of your actions bring a poor Malaysia with poorer Malaysians. Thank you.
I would like to thank the Leader of Opposition, Navijit Singh, for his speech. Now, to extend the case of the government bench, I would like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister, Amira Natasha Moore, for a speech.
Hello. You see, companies, unlike governments, didn't work on the will of the people. They weren't voted in, and the benefits that they give are highly speculative and is dependent on the global market and not dependent on what your people actually need on the ground. This debate happens from the perspective of the government because only governments can make nationwide policies. As government, you shouldn't shift the burden to companies in order to salvage your economy, because when that happens, you lose all respect for the people that you owe your duty to. In my speech, I'm going to answer two questions. Firstly, directly dealing with leader of opposition, which is what exactly is the mentality of investors and MNCs, and secondly, why we think it's necessary for you to prioritize reduction of inequality over economic growth. So first question, what is the mentality of the investors and MNCs? Because Navin came up here and told you that, well, these corporations are very selfish and they only care about profit and they're going to leave. I'm going to tell you that it's exactly because of this selfish perspective that they will stay. Why? Firstly, is because they probably want to stay because they want to maximize their profit. Why would I only invest in Vietnam when I can invest in both Vietnam and Malaysia? Like, that's just simple logic, right? Secondly, I think that there's the understanding of the first mover's advantage. What is the first mover's advantage? It means that you have to go under the mentality that if you don't do it, somebody else will. This means that companies will go into Malaysia because they recognize that if they don't, another company will go in and dominate that market. Intel left, IBM stayed. Especially in a world where you've got like America competing against China, you've got Europe competing against Russia. One global market pulls out, another global market comes in. They're not going to want to risk that. They're not going to want to risk their profits. They're probably going to stay. But lastly, can I just say that companies aren't angels in your world either? Like, it's not as if like they're probably going to hire those individuals who need the job the most, the education the most, the people who are like at the bottom of society who currently go like disregarded, considering the fact that hiring those people, cost of training, more cost of insurance, more cost of like housing facilities and any forms of assistance. So I highly doubt that you're going to cater towards the specific problems that exist within society, because inequality doesn't just exist amongst socioeconomic classes of people, right? So it's not just about like the poor, the middle income, as well as the rich. When it comes to government-specific policies about inequality, government take into account, no thank you, things like the inequality between classes, the inequality between races, the inequality between genders, the inequality between ethnicities. Governments are the only ones who can do this because they have all the information, as opposed to corporations where you don't divulge all of that full information towards them. But furthermore, even if you did, you cannot ensure that these corporations would have the incentive to do so. Why it's necessary to prioritize reduction of inequality over economic growth. Firstly, is because economic growth with minimal reduction of inequality doesn't really protect the vulnerable. Because in their best case scenario, things like free trade, corporate tax breaks, again, notice that it benefits a lot of the people who are already in the network, right? People who already are educated, people who already are like probably not in really desperate situations. Probably, yeah, corporations have more money to hire individuals. But notice how people end up getting jobs. A lot of the times, it's also based on networking, right? Based on who your parents know. A lot of the times, it's based on people who already had somewhat of a financial care for themselves, that they were able to get meaningful education in order to compete for those jobs. So that means you may produce more jobs, but you don't solve inequality. You make the rich richer, and you make the poor poorer. No. Secondly, in the best case scenario, right? I'm gonna like assume and just like be nice for a little bit, because they said that this is going to trickle down to the poor. In the best case scenario that the trickle down does get to the poor, I'm going to tell you how this re-entrenches the birth lottery. The birth lottery means that a lot of the times what we are born into just becomes our life. So if you are born poor, it's very difficult for you to climb out of that poverty, right? No, thank you. In a world where coincidentally, the corporation that was doing well is a corporation that invested in agriculture. That means that the poor people specifically only under the agricultural sector, by virtue of luck that the global market wanted to prioritize agriculture in your world, would help out the poor under agricultural sectors. But they won't help the poor in any other sectors, right? The same thing with like, if coincidentally it was the automobile industry that was doing well, poor people under different industries don't get prioritized. This means that at best, your help is very selective. It's not going to help individuals, and it's probably like, it's not like the objective of the corporations to help those who are poor. It was just like, yeah, coincidentally, we helped you. What do you know? Myth.
In the next 1 or 2 decades, low-skilled labor is likely to disappear as a result of automation, or in the worst case, artificial intelligence. How do you propose to encourage a kind of investment and innovation necessary in order to ensure we create new sectors for the low-skilled laborers in order to adapt to this new situation.
But like that actually benefits us, right? That POI. Because in a world where if you concede corporations are heading in the direction of automation because it saves costs for them, so if you open your markets and make it more competitive for corporations to come in, and corporations are still working under the attitude of we want to go into automation, that means corporations aren't going to help the manual labor workers that you are worried about. In our world, when you actually focus on individuals specifically and the fact that you need to solve inequality, means that regardless of whether corporations end up, end up having more machineries or not, people still get helped. But in your world, if corporations are still fixated on like automation and wanting machinery and they have to fire more people because they just don't need those people anymore, how do you help those people, especially when those people were depending on that pay? Lastly, I would talk about how even when it comes to the upper class, we better benefit them. Why? In a world where presumably individuals are more equal when it comes to their socioeconomic classes, this means that individuals have a higher purchasing power. Companies benefit from a society that has higher purchasing power. It means more people can buy your goods. It means that more profits. It also means that if you get more profits, get more bonuses. Basically, those people in their ivory towers also still get to benefit. But lastly, I would also say that the reason why these corporations end up benefiting is because you don't have to concentrate on corporate social responsibility as much. Corporate social responsibility means that corporations go out and kind of do charity societal work to help the improvement of society. But the point at which society is not as bad as they were before, you probably can concentrate less on that and more on your sustainable economic growth. This means that the prioritization of solving inequality is a precursor for economic growth to happen. Your benefits can't happen in a world where you neglect the individuals, the very people who mobilizes your economy. For these reasons, practicals.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister Amira Natasha-Moore for her remarks. Now, to extend the opposition's case, I gladly invite Felice Wong, the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Governments are unable to shield you against the fact that the jobs of today will disappear. They trade off the fact that MNCs are the only ones that can create new industries to save you from automation, to provide you new jobs in ways that governments cannot. Because the thing about them is that they can say that our MNCs will automate, but they give the MNCs more of an incentive to automate faster, to leave and pull out of your countries faster, never give you the know-how that Malaysia desperately needs. I will first respond to the speakers before me by giving you a comparison of policies before moving on to my arguments of how Malaysian people will adversely react to the deprioritization of economic development. But let me give you a comparison of both worlds. And this comes with a really good case study about protectionism. So their flaw in their explanation of protectionism is it assumes that Malaysia exists in a vacuum, but it doesn't. Protectionism relies on leverage. This means that when you compete regionally, the countries around you have more leverage than you. This is especially true for China. Protectionism in China is really high for a lot of state-owned companies, but the opportunity cost for large companies like GlaxoSmithKline is higher than that, right? This means that a lot of MNCs still go to China because they feel they cannot afford the opportunity cost. They still invest despite that protectionism. This is not true in terms of Malaysia. Malaysia has not reached that level of a global powerhouse in comparison to China. This means that a lot of your companies will come into Malaysia and enter into your markets and sell to you, but not manufacture in your countries. They will give you the jobs in your country. You no longer have the factories. You no longer have ability to create new industries in that. So this is a mistake that came from them when they say that you'll still have these companies in your market. They'll only be in your market to sell to you. It means that they take your money. They don't provide actual money within your country. But this is in comparison to the opposition case, which is where we say that we must allow companies to come in. We must be pro-business. This is because it's true that they're not angels, and it's maybe a coincidence of this whole birth lottery thing, but you can't just say it's a coincidence, but not tell us that the coincidence is bad. If the coincidence has value to people on the ground, it means that we still get the benefits on our side, and that people who are poor still experience all the benefits of infrastructure when it comes to development, of economies of scale where things are cheaper as a result of factories manufacturing in your country, of public transport. This means that companies may not have the information that governments have, but they have more ability to carry it out in a better way because they create more money, they create more jobs. So this deals the comparison that came from their side, right? That even the birth lotteries that may disadvantage people now, that birth lottery is limited as a result of expansion of that corporations. In your world, the birth lottery will be even more vicious and even more harmful to people on the ground. But I'm going to argue to you that Malaysian people will adversely react to the deprioritization of economic development. Because this debate failed to be sensitive to what Malaysian people are like. And I'll deal with this in 3 stakeholders. But here's the premise that underlies this argument. That it's a depressing premise, but it's a very true one. That policies on their side are controversial. Welfare is controversial. Higher taxes are controversial. That quotas are controversial. And a lot of times, their policies take a long time to take into effect, and people just aren't going to be happy as a result of this. And I'll deal with this in 3 ways. But before that, sure.
The whole reason why Kuala Lumpur is significantly more developed than a place like Kuantan is because Kuantan was not a mining town and corporations didn't have need for seafood back then. Why is your world more equitable and can help more people and doesn't entrench a birth lottery?
But the problem is that right now, if rural areas aren't already invested in, they'll be less invested in on your side. A lot of development will be entered into concentrated urban areas. They won't enter into your Kuantan anymore, and they're even less likely to enter as a result of your policies, right? Because they don't have an incentive to do so. In fact, they're disincentivized from doing so. But let's look at people who are from high income backgrounds. Currently in Malaysia, we already have stereotypes of the poor. We already have a lot of hatred and blame a large source of this comes from people from high income. The perception of meritocracy and the denial of privilege is increased as a result of this idea that you can no longer reap what you sow, that as a result, you must always pay your taxes, and that there's a lower earning potential in their side because you always have to pay taxes no matter how much you earn. This means that there will be a higher intellectual capture from other countries, that there's a high demand of these people in foreign countries, and they take away. This means people like countries like Singapore, they're already attracting our teachers out of Malaysia and entering into the education systems of Singapore that pay a lot higher, right? This means that you can prioritize education, but you don't have the right people to teach within your education. This means that you don't retain talent. Right now, two in 10 people, 10 Malaysian professionals already leave the country and have a large incentive to do so, right? This means that their feelings of betrayal as a result of all your policies will grow, and they'll feel like you don't care about them, and they'll leave these countries. The brain drain is something that you cannot afford. But let's look at the people from middle income backgrounds. These are people who have less opportunity for social mobility, and they're teetering between surviving and falling into poverty. This means that they oftentimes don't benefit from welfare because they don't qualify for welfare, but they're also forced to opt into local businesses that don't thrive and aren't attractive. This means that they have a bad perception of the government. In the same way that Francois Hollande from France was literally the lowest. Was literally the most hated, was literally one of the most unpopular presidents as a result of his 75% tax, right? This means that a lot of times these middle class income people don't trust the government anymore, but it's the worst off for people who are already in poverty. It's explained to you by my first speaker. That oftentimes, these are people who are most reliant on skilled labor. They already experience the stigma of unemployment or the stigma of being poor, but this means that there's an added-on resentment, but the fact that you give them welfare, right? A lot of times, people feel that welfare is something that that is seen with a negative stigma, and a negative stereotype, right? We think that this added on with the plummeting currency, with the high cost of living, and their policies essentially will not be a solace for these people when they experience more discrimination, they experience the effects of brain drain, the effects of lesser job opportunities on their side.
Thank you very much, Felice, the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Now, to summarize the substantive portion of the government bench, I would like to invite the government whip, Don Siron Pereira. Before, I would just like to remind everyone that the motion of the night is that this House believes that Malaysia should prioritize policies that reduces inequality over economic growth. Okay, Don Siron Pereira, Government Whip.
A few weeks ago, on the very rare occasion that I have a heart, I decided to take part in some corporate social responsibility with the company that I'm currently working for. So what we did was we tied closely with one of the soup kitchens in KL, Kachara Soup Kitchen. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. And but we did something different for people to come to the streets, because a big part of the poor in Kuala Lumpur are invisible. They are the extreme poor that are living in the cities and they have dependents. So they can't travel out to the city to get a free food. So what we did was we had to bring food and supplies to them. And it was very interesting because to the place that we went, it was called Jinjang Selatan. It's somewhere in Cheras-ish. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. To get to the houses, we got to Jinjang Selatan at about like 5, but to get into another, just a mere 5 kilometers took us about half an hour to 45 minutes. And when we got there, it was just rows and rows of houses that were ill-equipped. They all had Astro satellites, and they didn't have any gates. It was really dangerous, and people were walking around with barely any clothes on, because they all had a beautifully perfect view of our Menara Twin Towers. And it was very interesting because, and when we had the hopes and dreams of Wawasan 2020, and we made such a big deal about economic growth, and we prided ourselves around the existence of the Twin Towers, we failed to see that it casted a huge shadow upon people that were left behind. And that's what Mayor as well as Jason were trying to tell you today. That it is not easy for a vast amount of people that this team assumes opportunities will be given to. So, who do we protect? That'll be my first question. What will companies do? So it was strange that the first speaker on the other side said, oh, a lot of companies will go to Vietnam, they have better rice and like it's cheaper labor and stuff like that. Firstly, we think Vietnam should do this too. I think they should also protect and defend social inequalities as opposed to defending their top. But the second thing is we would say, I give you quite a number of reasons why there's a first mover advantage. It is literally horrible strategy for you to not invest in a country where you have relatively calm and like diverse, a melting pot of capital as well as human labor that you can use. And it's great. And I don't think the examples of IBM were tackled very well with the speaker before me. So I have a seat. But there's one very important question that we must ask in this issue. What do the companies look like on their side? Because if you listen very carefully to the first speaker, he says we should reduce tariffs, no taxes, possibly no minimum wage because that's better for our companies. I don't know who they want to defend on their side, but it looks like a lot of people that barely have any idea about their union membership rights, which is horrible in Malaysia, by the way. We have horrible union membership here. On top of that, have a seat. On top of that, they don't want minimum wage because it's better for the company. So what will companies do? Companies will come in, they'll open up your factories, they'll pay people absolutely abhorrent wages because it's good for the country. Then the question is, what is the benefit you get from that? Because we wanted to know, where will the money go? They suggest trickle-down economics is a real thing. But okay, let's assume it is. Let's assume it is a real thing. In fact, money does go to people that need it the most. We said this is untrue. We said this is untrue because there are mounting amount of evidence of income and wealth inequality in Malaysia. I think if you read the book, you would know, as Dr. Anas also told us earlier, that the qualitative and quantitative data on the research for wealth and income inequality is indisputable. This means that the way we assess whether people are are part of the gap is not just on pre-existing theories, but also new ones. That means there are constantly new ideas as to why people are poor and left out. And all those ideas stem from the inequality of side opposition. The second thing is, what do Malaysians want? Because we heard from the opposition's second speaker that Malaysians want better opportunities, that Malaysians want to get paid higher, and that's why a lot of teachers, according to Felice, go to Singapore. I'm sorry, the first thing I will say is maybe teachers want a better teaching environment. That means we have to make our public schools better, right? And that happens inside government when we prioritize income and education inequality in government. They would give more tax breaks for private and international schools to open up and leave individuals, a vast amount of kids, like 90% of kids, I promise you the number is probably more, cannot afford to go to great universities like this simply because it's too expensive. The teachers should remain and will remain here because we will make our schools much better. Go.
So if you don't want foreign direct investment, you don't want private firms, and you want companies, where do you get the money to make these magnificent schools you speak of?
Yes, and I think that was another big misrepresentation. I think you were the one that wanted to correct us and say, oh, companies are not all that bad. And I also think not all companies will leave. And it's also the kinds of companies you want to stay, right? Having a company stay is not a good in and of itself. It's about the quality that the company can provide to you. So you have companies in Malaysia that will constantly keep large pockets of people in a crunch because they know they have no other option. There's no other company to go to. We're the only ones that are here. When we set the standards and we provide for better labor standards, better income distribution, we ensure that companies keep up with those standards. That's when companies that choose to leave will be left, the void that they leave behind will be filled with better companies and better standards. This is exactly why IBM stayed even after your Intel and Microsoft left. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this debate, we accept on side government we have less classy, less privileged, less luxurious facilities and infrastructure, but on a net, a better distribution on average to a vast amount of Malaysians we are happy to propose.
Thank you very much to the Government Whip, Don Serang Pereira. Now, to end this debate, I'd like to invite the Opposition Whip, Mifsal Mohammed.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the second time that I've spoken at a public debate. The last time was Transparency International public debate. And just like this one, the last time I also had to speak against the person hosting the event. So the last time I had to advocate for bribery to Transparency International. This time I have to advocate for wealth inequality to Dr. Anas Alam. Quite obviously not the best position to be in. But I think throughout this entire debate, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition bench has given you a realistic picture of economic policy. That economic policy isn't just ideological, it isn't just something rhetorical that we say in a debate, but economic policies are zero-sum. And what that means is that it has to acknowledge and navigate local realities and global realities when it comes to trying to determine what's most strategic for a country, ladies and gentlemen. We've given you several reasons in this debate to tell you why Malaysia can't position itself to prioritize alleviating inequality, especially right now. And those reasons were never responded to by the government bench. What were these things? I think it's incredibly important to note several things in this debate. The first, something that I mentioned in my question to the second speaker just now, is that we face a reality in the next decade or two. High levels of automation, or in the worst case scenario, no thank you, artificial intelligence is likely going to be the base of how companies operate in large majority of circumstances. What that means is that for the large majority of your low-skilled laborers at the government bench, nobly, but not rightfully, want to defend in this particular circumstance, will not see the same jobs that they have today in the next 1 or 2 decades. Those jobs are going to disappear. The piecemeal welfare systems that they want to defend on the government bench are not going to change those realities. Because you can have job training, you can have government services attempt to teach them better, ladies and gentlemen. But what you will not have on that side of the house are the startups that will flood to Singapore, the multinational corporations that will rather manufacture in Vietnam and Indonesia and the Philippines. That there are companies that will rather go to elsewhere in Southeast Asia rather than manufacture right here in Malaysia. The reason why this is important is because they get all the benefits. There's no opportunity cost. There's no first mover's advantage, as the third speaker of the government bench wants to tell you. Because you can still sell to Malaysians, right? ASEAN has a common market. You can still sell here. The only difference is that you don't have to train any Malaysians. You don't have to hire any Malaysians. You don't have to hire any executives, hire any women, ensure there's any technological transfer, ensure there's no skill transfer for the poor Malaysian later on to be able to build their own business 5 years later, or for the worker or the executive to build their own company and hire locals in the future as well. That's the continuity we offered on the opposition bench. But what did they tell us? They told us that it's okay. We'll trade that off. It's all right. We don't want private companies because they're evil most of the time. But ladies and gentlemen, you can't expect a socialist utopia. We're not Sweden. As much as, we like the Vikings and, sorry, that's Norway, but you get the point. But in most circumstances, governments aren't able to sufficiently provide for all the jobs and investment to support all the things that we require in order to ensure that wealth inequality is alleviated in the long term. So what's the balance that we need to draw here? The balance that we need to draw is how do we attract the most amount of foreign direct investment in an environment where we have Singapore being the magnet of investment in the region. Let's not split hairs. Singapore is taking away the best talents in the region, locally and abroad, and also the best companies. Low-skilled laborers are not going to be a thing in the next decade or two, and even if they were, they're going to Indonesia, they're going to Vietnam, they're going to Thailand or Laos PDR. So in that environment, ladies and gentlemen, the only thing we can do is to acknowledge that the world economy does not wait for us. The world economy does not go on pause because you want to take a break. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we need to maintain competitiveness, ensure that growth is at the central tenet of our economic policy, and we remain competitive with the regional leaders in this particular circumstance. Yes, ma'am.
Your trickle down has been about how more companies create more jobs, but if your analysis is also that companies start automation, how do you get that trickle down effect in ensuring more jobs and more pay for the people?
Because automation might take out all your low-skill paying jobs right now. But as we all know it, the creation of new industries creates new industries in of themselves. When it comes to maintenance, when it comes to repairing, when it comes to innovation of those same companies, ladies and gentlemen. But those innovations, those industries are never created in the first place if you disincentivize them from investing in Malaysia to begin with. That's why, in that particular circumstance, you have the locals creating the local jobs. You have the local startup creating innovative solutions to local problems, alleviating poverty for the local people, ladies and gentlemen. Those things are not created when you have local startups not getting the investment from your multinational corporations. You don't have that young, energetic graduate from Harvard Kennedy School working in a multinational corporation and they think to themselves that I want to create a startup that solves the situation when it comes to people in Jinjiang or wherever it is in Malaysia not being able to have an opportunity. Those innovative solutions do not come out of thin air, ladies and gentlemen. Fundamentally, innovative solutions to real-world 21st century problems only happen when we maintain competitiveness, where we ensure that we're ahead of the game rather than following at the coattails of people who take advantage of us. For example, we think it's incredibly important for us to know that renewable energy that was not talked about in this debate is also a big concern. that it's estimated in 33 years we'll run out of natural gas, 19 years for Brent crude oil, and we're still not energy independent. Large portion of our currency, a large reason why our currency depreciated last year was because of the dip in Brent crude oil prices. Renewable energy is at the forefront of the Malaysian crisis, ladies and gentlemen. And in order for us to be able to engage in that global fight for innovation in renewable energy, innovation, investment, multinational corporations having confidence in the Malaysian economy, and fundamentally investing and trusting in the Malaysian economy is what's required. You will not have magic, or you will not have the Malaysian government being able to go Zam Zam Al Kazam, Wingardium Leviosa, whatever spell, and then you get solar panels, or you get wind energy and wind farms, or you get all the renewable energy that makes Malaysia sustainable, energy independent, and not dependent on shale oil, natural gas, Saudi Arabia, and Brent crude oil, and a dip in our currency, ladies and gentlemen. That level of independence is only created when we have financial, economic independence, and it's only created with growth. I'm exceptionally proud of it.
I thank the opposition whip, Bin Sam Mohammed, for his speech, as well as all the speakers for their fantastic speeches. Let's give them another round of applause for a fantastic debate. You may cross floors, shake hands, and make your way downstairs. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of the debate showcase and our night as well. Thank you very much to Tan Sri Haji Arshadayu, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Anwar Ali, Tan Sri Dato Ahmad Fuzi, Tan Sri Dr. Gaut Jasmon, Associate Professor Dr. Chandran Sumasundram, Dr. Ronald McCoy, Dr. Nung Sari, Dr. Anas Alam Faizli, and all guests for taking their time to witness the book launch of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysians and the debate showcase. If any, my apologies for any mistakes on my part throughout the night. But before we end, let's give another round of applause to the people who have made tonight possible. Dr. Anas Alam Faizli, the author of Rich Malaysia, Poor Malaysia. Also not to forget the co-organizers for the night, the Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking and Gerak Budaya. And lastly, the supporters and hosts for tonight's event, Sunway University. And with that being said, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good night.